This conference will now be recorded.
For the school and public libraries, a winning combination. This afternoon, I would like to show you first a slide of our other upcoming webinars. Let's see if I can get it to go. Well, pardon me, I went a little wild there. So our other upcoming Discus webinars that you want to keep a place on your calendar for, you can go to our scdiscus.org to the training calendar and check out information on those. Let's go ahead and meet your presenter. Alisha Polkowsky has worked for the Lexington County Library System for 10 years. Prior to her current position as Youth Services Librarian, she was a library assistant with a split role in reference and youth services, where she became very familiar with Discus and the databases while working the reference desk. Before delving into the library world, Alisha worked in the bridal fashion industry for 20 years, which she says, quote, strangely enough, prepared me for hosting library events. So I'm sure you all can relate to that. Ms. Polkowsky currently lives in Irmo with her husband and two sons, aged 14 and 4, and their two fat cats. If you can't find her at the library, you can usually spot her by the water, fishing, or reading. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the ears over to Alisha.
Hello, and thank you. Thank you guys for coming and spending an hour with me and here at the State Library and over in Computer Land. I know this is a busy time of year preparing for summer reading, so I do thank you for coming in and sharing your time. So today what we're going to talk about is school and public libraries working together and collaborating so we can all win here. So if you are trying to get out into the schools and you might have a supervisor or a director that says, you know, why is outreach really important? And it really is important. And so we're going to go over these real quick. These are good talking points. And the library, going out, we introduce the library to new groups in the community. There might be kids that have never stepped foot in the library. There could be parents that took their kids for story times when they were young and then they just haven't brought them back. So we want to get out there and show who we are and what we do. And having those face-to-face interactions makes the most lasting impression, because going into the schools, elementary, middle, high schools, and getting to meet the kids and letting them know who you are and meet face-to-face when they come into the library, it's a little bit less intimidating for them. I mean, some libraries are big and they see big desks and they see lots of books and they see a lot of people walking around, but when they see that familiar face, they tend to be more relaxed and comforted that, oh, there is somebody here. I know there is somebody here that I can go ask questions, and that makes them less intimidated to ask questions as well. And we really want to expand that student's learning environment. You know, we talk about the 3 spaces. Home, for students, usually home. Second space is school. And then we have to compete with that third space. You know, we want them to have another safe environment to come to learn. Not necessarily school things. I mean, we also teach life lessons and skills and things like that. So we want that to be that third learning environment for the children, for students. And then when children get excited about visiting the library, because here you are, you've come to the library, you showed them all these really cool programs, you gave them coloring sheets and pencils and little trinkets and stuff, and it's like they get really excited about coming to the library. Well, then they're going to go home and they're going to talk to their parents, and they're going to try to get their parents excited. So I don't know about you, but I don't know many 3rd, 4th, or 5th graders that can drive themselves to the library. So when they come in, they're going to bring in their parents. And then when they bring in their parents, we can show their parents all the really cool stuff that we have, not only for children and teens, but for parents as well. So we can show them, like, look, we have crafting programs, we have knitting programs, we have fun tax programs, because, you know, that's just life skills that we have to learn about. But these are just some really important points to why going out into the schools, you know, why this is very important. And hopefully you do have wonderful supervisors and directors that understand this. But if they're getting a little hesitant, you know, these are some really good talking points to say, you know, hey, we want to go out there. We know what we have. We know how cool the library is. We know all the fun activities and things. And we want to go out there and tell the world, because we want them to come into the library. And again, like we said, if you have questions, please feel free to chat during the program, because you know, if you hear something and just stop me and say, hey, got a question about this, feel free. So who do we talk to and how do we get in? So the first thing I want to express is this is not an overnight process. I mean, I would love for you to say, hey, Alisha, I heard your webinar on Thursday and Friday. I contacted these schools and now I'm going to go do 20 outreaches next month. That would be in a wonderful world, but it doesn't usually happen. It took me about 2 years to really gain the trust and get to know the teachers very, very well to get into the schools. The best way, I know it's an antiquated way now, but the best way is email. Email still works. These teachers are very busy. They like to email me sometimes at 7:30 in the morning, and sometimes they email me at 9 o'clock at night. Sometimes they can only check their email once a day, where they can't answer their phones. You know, leaving voicemail messages, hit or miss, but if you can write them an email and explain, hey, I would love to come to your class, or I'd love to come to your school, and you list out what you can do for them, then that's something that they can share around to their team members, their principals, their specialists, something like that. And then that way they, you know, they have this hard copy of this is what you can do. So who do you email and how do you get these emails? Well, every school has a website, and on their website they list the teachers and they list who they are and what they do. So that's been a really, really great resource. I actually have a whole separate Gmail account, and I email once a week to not only students and teens that give me their email to do weekly updates, but I have little groups for all the teachers. And then that way, if I need to get in touch with, you know, one group of teachers from like the Irmo Middle School or Dutch Fork High School, I can email them out. But normally I just send them all together. So your school media specialists, and don't forget the assistants, because sometimes the media specialists are very, very busy, but that assistant can sit there and read and go, hey, this would be something really cool to do. ELA teachers, for your middle and high schools, the English teachers are really a good way too, because sometimes at the end of the year, the school media specialists are so busy weeding and making sure, going around getting all the lost books and doing inventory. And those ELA teachers are like, yeah, we are done with standardized testing, but school doesn't get out for another 10 days. What are we going to do with the kids? Well, you bring in the crazy library lady, and we have lots of fun. Reading and literacy coaches are also a great tool. I use those for a lot of elementary school, and because they host a lot of programs for like literacy nights and family nights and things like that. So they're a great resource. School counselors, I tend to use those more in the high schools. I host a yearly job fair, and so the school counselors, and they have career specialists in the high schools, and they really, really help spread the word about that and getting the kids in. So that's been great. Vice principals for instruction, that's been a new one.
Yeah, it's the internet's not on, it's not working. That's why I'm having to use my phone.
They've been really, really great. because they help do some of the curriculum nights and some of the schools too. But basically any teacher would be great. We hosted, I did a Stranger Things lock-in in the fall, and we had a group of kids come in, and I always ask me, well, how'd you hear about it? Or our chemistry teacher. It's like, okay, how'd your chemistry teacher hear about it? Well, they saw the flyer up on one of the other teachers' bulletin boards, and he loves Stranger Things, and so he was telling them about it. So just, any teacher that's interested, I'm like, yeah, I'll take your email, that's fine. So what do you say in these weekly emails that I put out? Well, I always list the upcoming programs. I do one at the beginning of the month that says, here's everything that's coming up. And then that week I just take off the old and just keep adding the new. I also attach a JPEG version of all of our flyers. And this is a great way that teachers love to share this. They like to share it on Google Classroom. Some of the media specialists put it up on their TV screens that are throughout the school that kind of list things that are going on. Some teachers also are part of the social media for their school. And so that's just another great way to share what's going on, or telling the kids like, hey, this is coming up. They like Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. So that's been really, really nice. And I always like to add a little sentence at the end. We say, and don't forget, teachers, we would love to come and talk to your class about books and databases and storytelling. And you just kind of plant that seed in their head, like, look, we love to talk about books. We're good with books. But what else can we do for you? And you kind of just list different things that you can do, because again, you know what you can do, but others may not know what you can do. Any questions about any of this slide? Maybe? I'm also a Yankee, so I tend to talk fast, and I do apologize. All right. Oh, we're just gonna, hold on one second. The computer's yelling at me. Okay. So when the teachers do ask, so what can you do for me? If you want to come to my school, what can you do for me? Well, we can do lots and lots of things. Curriculum nights, that's kind of a no-brainer, but what can you do with that? I was able to go to our Irmo High School's curriculum nights for a couple of years, and they separated us into classrooms, and we had 30 minutes a session. And the vice principal of instruction wanted me to talk about, ACT, SAT, AP prep. And I said, oh, I can do that. I have Learning Express. So I got to do a little shout out to the library at the beginning of the class, tell them some of the things that we can do. And then I walked them through how to get to Learning Express. I made up a dummy account, and I showed them how to, use it, how to get on, how to create the account. It's all free. And I had to keep saying that over and over, because so many people ask, well, how much is this? I'm like, you've already paid for this, your taxes. This is all free. And, showed them how to do it. And some of the parents were kind of having fun with it. They're like, oh, so like we can make an account and the kids can make an account, and then we can both take the SAT and see who does better. I'm like, sure. If you really want to take that test over again, go right ahead. But things like that. And I showed them other databases during the night too, but Learning Express was the big one that night. Book fair volunteers. This is, schools desperately need help with this. They put out on there like a volunteer list. If you don't do a book fair volunteer, you really, really should. My branch just helped out with Harbison West a couple weeks ago, and it was the most fun. It was so much fun because those kids were so excited about books, and we got to do reader's advisory. Plus, I was watching what the kids were gravitating towards more. What did they want? What were they picking up? What were they buying? And so I was making a little notes to myself, and I made sure that we had that in our branch. And if we didn't, well, we need to order that, because the kids, you know, when I see 2 or 3 kids picking up the same book, well, you know, we got to make sure we have that book. But again, it was a great way to meet the kids, to introduce yourself to the kids. Of course, I wore my summer reading shirt because they just came in the day before, which was awesome, and got to talk to them about summer reading, and got to talk to the librarian and say, okay, we need to come back out and just talk about summer reading with the kids. STEM and STEAM nights. I know, like, our district has a engineer magnet elementary school and an engineer magnet high school. This has been really fun. We have in our collection, we have like circuitry boards, and then we have the Ollie robot, which is always fun. But then we can also go and talk about the Science Reference Center. So when we're looking at the parents and going, so you know that fun science fair project that the child, you know, it's really going to be you that has to do this. The Science Reference Center actually has a whole section for science fair projects and tells you how to do it. So that's been a good resource. And the kids have fun playing with the robots and the circuits, but you're talking to the parents like, okay, this will help you. Trust me, this will get the less crazy out of your life here. When literacy nights and literacy luau's. So we're going to a literacy luau next week. That thing is so much fun. But literacy nights and literacy luau's and anything like they call it book night or storytelling night, these are really essential too to get involved with, to help out with. You can show, like, you know, over the summer, sometimes the kids can't get to the library, really don't have access to the library as much, and you tell the parents, like, look, you can still access our ebook collection. There's tumble books. If the kids are stuck about what to read next, there's novelist. So these are things that we can share with them, plus have a really good time, and again, you know, pass out like program guides and things like that. And then we have a great lady that goes and does all of our outreach during the school year for the elementary age kids. She does story times for the 4 and 5Ks at some of the elementary schools and some of the preschools that we have around. We have a lot of church preschools around. And that, again, is a great way to go and introduce yourself to these kids. Again, you know, these kids are, you know, either in school or in a daycare during the day, so they might not get to go to the regular story times. But when we go out, we can give them a coloring sheet, and on the back of the coloring sheet, we can put down like a list of upcoming programs. Like we have a pajama story time once a month, so that's like at night, 7 o'clock at night, and we have Saturday events, so those working parents can still come to some of our programs with their children. But, you know, of course, those kids are going to take home those coloring sheets because they're like, Mom, Dad, look what I colored. And then it's a great way on the back to say, like, look, here's what we have coming up, and just let them know that we still have stuff for them and available. Career fairs. This is fun, or career days, to go in and say, you know, I'm a librarian. And it's really fun when the kids say, so what do you do? Sit around and read magazines all day? That's fun. We say, no, we actually do this. And we play with robots. We play with drones. We make slime. We make perler bead keychains. We watch anime. And then you start really getting them hooked. And then one of the curriculum nights I did 2 years ago, she had me do Learning Express for one session, and then we talked about careers the next session. And using the career transitions is fun because I just ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, let's look. What do we do? How do we do that? What kind of training? What kind of education? What kind of salary do you think you're going to make? And so that was a great tool to use and talk about like different careers coming up. International Day Festival, we just did that 2 weeks ago. We went to a local school in our area, and it was International Day. It was the day before spring break, so you know the kids, it's always fun. And so we had 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders in our group. and they came in and cycled through. We had about 45 minutes each. What are you going to do with third graders and fourth graders for 45 minutes? Well, of course, we did a story time, and we read a book about saying hello in different languages, and the kids were guessing the languages, and that was fun. And then I brought up culturograms, and I'm like, where in the world would you like to go? And so they picked different countries, and we learned about the different countries and some of the food and pictures and things like that. And then we showed them mango, because I said, you know, what, you're going to start learning Spanish? What kind of language you want to learn? I said, you know, do you want to learn pirate? And they were like, what? Pirate's not a language? And oh, yes, it is. And so we brought it up, and we brought it up so they could actually hear it talk at the same time on the smart board. And they were just having the most fun talking pirate. And we talked about how September 19th was National Talk Like a Pirate Day. And what was really interesting is the teachers came to us afterwards and went, I didn't know we could do that. And I said, yes, you can do that. And showing them how they could save it to their Google Drives or make it a folder. The teachers were getting excited about that, and the kids were just like, so we can go at home and we can show our parents we can learn pirate? And yes, sure. Go home, major in pirate. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? Ghost stories. I get to do this. This was one of the first things I got to do to really get into the schools. There's a local school that we have called Crossroads. It is all sixth graders, and there's about 900 students. So usually in October, they talk more about South Carolina history, and you know, South Carolina's a spooky state. And so I got to go in and I tell the story of Lavinia Fisher. And if you guys are not familiar with her, she was very crazy. She was the first female convicted serial killer in the United States, and she's from Charleston. So it's a really fun program that I do. I have a little PowerPoint with it, and I bring up articles about the trial, and they always ask if they're real, and I always ask, yes, I researched this, I'm a librarian. And I found a supposed picture of her, and we tell the ghost story of Lavinia Fisher. And what's great is when I bring up the article, we get to talk about the language, because it was written in the 1800s and how very different the language is. But usually around that same time in sixth grade, they just are finished learning about simple machines like pulleys and ropes and things like that. And if you know the story of Lavinia Fisher, you know why that's important. I'm not going to ruin the story. So you have to look it up, or just come to one of my programs and we'll talk about Lavinia Fisher. But I also show them Study SC. And I got to my oldest son is in 8th grade, so he's learning South Carolina history. And he and his friends begged to let her bring me in. And so I retold the story of Lavinia Fisher, but instead of focusing more on the machines, I focused more on the history of Charleston and South Carolina, because they were in that time period at the time. And one of the breaks, I showed the teachers the Study SC, and they didn't realize that there were actually lesson plans on that database. And so now I have new best friends because they're like, oh, this is already done for us. I said, yes, we try to make your lives easier. Again, they don't know what we have to offer. So getting out there, we get to show them a little bit more. Summer reading assemblies and presentations. This is what I have been planning for the past 2 weeks now, is going out to the schools. The best way to do it too is if you can write a letter saying, you know, hey, it's that time of year again, time for us to come out, time for us to think about coming out and talking about summer reading. With the one literacy luau, that's going to be our summer reading presentation there, because we get about 20 minutes just by ourselves to talk before they go around to all the little stations. You can think of different ways how to do this. With the elementary schools, it's a lot easier to put them in an auditorium, and they usually do like K through 2 and 3 through 5th grade in auditorium at once. I've had some libraries do puppet shows. I've had some libraries do skits. I've had some libraries tell me they do story times. I'm a visual person, so I like to have PowerPoints behind me, like showing the children visually what we have available for them. You do you do what's best for you, but if you give the teachers and the media specialists some options, like, hey, we can do an assembly this way, we can go to individual classrooms, we can do multiple classes at the same time in classrooms, that gives them a lot more way to get you in there a lot more than to think, tell us what you want, and they don't know what can you do. Well, if you tell them what you can do, then they can kind of pick and choose what's best for them. And then lunchtime fun. I don't know if you guys are available to go spend lunch at some of your schools. It's another great way to get out there and meet the kids and get to know them one-on-one. And it's real easy. You just get a table at lunchtime and put up a fun sign that says, like, Dumbledore was the worst wizard ever. Convince me he wasn't. And you'll get people coming up there. Or, get we have like a fun prize wheel that we just got at the Irmo Branch, and where we can write on it. And I'm thinking about taking it out to one of my outreaches and, spin the wheel and, win a prize. You have to answer one of the questions. So, it's just get something visually there. And then that way they will come up to your table, and especially if you have a bowl full of candy. I mean, little dum-dum lollipops, but man, you have those at schools, you'll be very, very popular. Let's see here. Do you also advertise your public library youth programs while at the school? If so, have you seen an increase in attendance at your programs? Yes and yes. Once I am in the schools, I'm like, hey, I have a captive audience. So yes, while I'm there, I tell them what we do, what we have coming up. It's like with the ghost story ones, usually the last 2 slides are like some of the programs that we have coming up for them. Or if you like to hear more ghost stories, we have Chad Cruz that comes to our library, and he does a program for teens and adults, an after-hours storytelling program. The adults like to be scared just as much as the teens. So we'll, advertise something like that. And yes, I do try to ask when the kids come to the programs, how did they hear about it? How, what brought you here? And sometimes, well, my teacher shared this, or I saw a poster up at school, or I got your email. So anytime I am in an audience in front of the schools, I always go, and at the library, we do this. If I can do a PowerPoint with like the flyer behind me, I try that as well, because the kids will always put up their phones and take pictures of it, of the PowerPoint. So that's also a good way too. Hope that answers the question. Let's see. Any other questions? I also take questions at the end, so if you're not a fast typer. Okay. Don't forget about your homeschool. So yes, we talk about going into the public schools, and we talk about going into the classes, but you have this whole other sector of homeschool. So don't forget about them. Get to know your homeschools. If you don't know, who your homeschoolers are or who your co-ops are, really start talking to the kids that come in during the day. Some of our libraries I've seen have offered different programs just for homeschool groups. So they're sometimes in the morning or in the middle of the afternoon for homeschoolers to come in and maybe learn a lesson or help with a lesson. I had one homeschooler group. They said, can you do a seminar just for us to teach us about Discus and researching and how to do all of that? And I said, yes, I can. So the co-ops do talk to each other, and we want to show them how awesome the library is. One way I did it is I had a mom and 2 teens come in, and they were having trouble researching the correct way for something. I think they were on a debate or something like that. And I said, oh, well, have you seen opposing viewpoints and things like, no. So we had a short little lesson in the library about Discus and how to use it and research it, and that wonderful citation button that they don't understand the struggle that we had growing up about citing correctly. And she looked at me and she said, would you be willing to come to our co-op and teach this to the middle and high schoolers? I said, yes, I will love to come up there and do that. A couple days later, the person in charge of that called me and said, can you come out on this date? We're going to have all of our middle and high schoolers here on this date. And we had a great time. I just went around the room and asked the kids, I'm like, okay, what project are you working on? Okay, let's look at the list of databases. Which one would you use and why would you use that? Let's look at it. And so they had some hands-on with it while I was there, so they could actually ask me questions. So that was a great way to, introduce yourself to that school. And that, homeschoolers tend to be left out, which is sad because they're a whole group of kids, again, that they actually have more access to the library. And some homeschool groups will actually do field trips to the library too, which is also great. But just don't forget about them. Okay. How can we be more involved in our schools? Besides going out and begging, please let me in your schools, most schools have, I think all schools have, a school improvement council. I was asked to do this about 2 days before I went on maternity leave with my youngest. I said, the secretary for the principal at the high school said, the principal would love for you to be on this council. I really was not familiar with it. I said, could you please email me what this is and what would be my role in that? And so I was asked to be a community member. They wanted the library involved. I have learned so much about how the high school works, my school district works, and the state education system. It's being part of this council. I have also taught them many different things about what the library can do for schools as well. Sorry. I did not realize when the ACT was now going to be used as one of the standardized tests. When I found that out, I just brought my phone out on my lap and started texting our reference coordinator, like, we need to order more ACT testing books, because I knew there was going to be an increase with that. Then I also got to inform them that, the schools don't have to pay X amount of money for these programs and these apps for ACT testing help, that we had that available for them as well. So we got to learn from each other. Also, I got to learn different trends going on in high schools and different concerns. So one concern that's been up recently is mental health with high schoolers, because there's so much pressure on high schoolers now. And then I feel really old when I was growing up. And so when I've been ordering my young adult nonfiction, I've been trying to get more teen mental health awareness, self-help, parents dealing with teens mental awareness. And so that's been a huge asset to me, is to get to know what is going on in the schools, where it's not just the learning aspect, but it's like the behind the scenes aspect. So that's been a really good help. And then I've also become friends with a lot of the PTSO members in our local schools. They're library moms, I call them. And now, the PTSO moms. And one time we got to help out with a story time at Chick-fil-A. They were doing a fundraiser night for an elementary school, 10% of the sales or whatnot. And they said, hey, would you like to come out and do, read stories to the kids while they're there? Because we're going to have a bunch of kids. And we're like, sure, Chick-fil-A, I'm not going to turn that down, right? And so we got to help out with that. And a lot of PTSOs help out with getting people to come to these literacy nights and these family nights at school. Our middle school that my son's at, they try to do a family night once a month, and they focus on certain area of learning. And one night was a games night, and so they said, well, could you come out? And I said, well, sure, we can come out. And then we just had our own little booth, had a little trifold with our flyers up about what's coming up in the library, and we just set out board games too. And well, they came over and they talked to us and they played our board games. It's just a great way to partner with these groups that you don't think, well, they're not really a teacher. I said, yeah, but PTSO have, they want parents and teachers and community members, and we're a community member that is educational as well. So that was a really good time that we could partner with and got to, again, see those kids one-on-one outside of a classroom setting, and get to know them a little bit better, and their parents too, because like I said, the kids can't drive themselves. So once you get the parents on board, then it's a lot easier to convince the kids to come in. So once you go out to these schools, and once you've built up these relationships with the schools and the teachers, and you're having a great time, you can have special events at your library for the schools. We were just talking about earlier, I got to speak with some media specialists last year, and we talked about, have you asked the library if you can do this? Have you partnered with the libraries to do this? And they were like, no, we didn't know. Well, now it's okay. We need to tell them that we can do this. Every September, usually after Labor Day, we have a local school that all the kindergarten classes meet at our library on a certain night. We really don't plan it. They just tell us, hey, is it okay if we come on this night? They usually reserve one of our meeting rooms, and the teachers kind of plan it out, everything. We make up little goodie bags, like how many students do you think are coming? And we put like the program guides in there, and pencils and coloring sheets, anything to put in their hands so they can take home and read later. And it's been a really great way to get to meet these kids, again, making those connections, and their parents, and letting the parents know, like, we are here for you. If you need books, recommendations for your beginning readers, and we talk about tumble books and things like that. So that, again, it's just a great way to come out. Our main library, they've had an event for many years called Lexington 1 Meet at Maine, and they invite the elementary age schools in Lexington School District 1 to meet at our main branch. And the teachers will plan it out. They usually get Pork Chop Productions to come and do a program, a little skit for them. If you don't know Pork Chop, they're really awesome. And again, we get to meet these students and parents and show off our library and what we can do for them. Parenting centers, districts usually have a parenting center or parenting literary center, or they call them different names. We've been fortunate enough to go out to our districts, and then they've been bringing meeting at our branch as well, where we do a story time lesson, and they provide pizza for the attendees. They provide the dinner for them, and we provide the entertainment. So it's great because some of these people are new to the area. They don't know about the library, but they get to come in, and the kids get to have a good time, and they get dinner. And again, it's just a great way to meet these people. Now this is a new program that I'm doing. It's called a study hall area. During one of my SIC meetings, they were talking about how they were trying to partner with local businesses to provide study areas for teens during exam time. And everybody looked at me, and I went, ha ha, we're like a block away. Hello. But my district is Lexington Richland 5. So half of our students are in Lexington County, half of the students are in Richland County. And so we had to explain that, we have open Wi-Fi. You don't have to have a library card to use the Wi-Fi. You don't have to be a member. So there was a little bit of confusion, but they said, well, what kind of study areas can you provide? And I went, no, let me get back to you. So what we're doing is Sundays in May, we're taking my meeting room and we're going to put out tables and comfy chairs and snacks and coloring sheets, and we were providing an area for the kids to come and study. So they're not distracted from houses or Starbucks or things like that. And then that way, if they do have questions or do need help or need more resources, we're there. But we're trying to provide that comfortable, again, third space for them to come and, kick back, relax, study. Getting too stressed, that's okay. We got some protein bars over here. We got some coloring sheets, go out, walk around the library and things like that. So this is something new they're trying. We'll see how it goes. Art nights at the library. Parents love to come and see their children's art displays, and children love to show off their art to parents, and schools need a big place to showcase that. Why not the library, right? We're usually open a little bit later at night, sometimes 8, sometimes till 9. Parents can come in after work. They recently did one at the Lexington main branch, and I do have all pictures of all this stuff too, so it's not boring slides. I do have pictures. And they had a huge group of kids and parents come in, and again, it's getting those non-traditional library users that they wouldn't normally come into the library, but they're going to come see their kids' art. And once you have them in the door, you got them. Let's show them all the cool stuff that we have. And usually I tend to see when the next ACT or SAT exams are coming up. And a couple weeks out, I do try to have a test prep 101 class that really just highlights Learning Express, shows them how to log on, shows them how to take the ACT and SAT practice test and the tutorials and things like that. We have a lot of AP classes offered in our district, and so I show them that as well. And I tend to get a lot more parents than students at these prep classes, but anything that they can use and look at and take home. The state library also has wonderful Discus swag that they like to send out, just pins or bracelets or things like that, and the kids think it's fun. But it's a really good time to sit there and go, look, we have this available for you. I have heard parents talk about they've spent anywhere from $50 to $100 on some of these test prep things, and it's like, no, this is free. Please use this. This is free. I always talk teamwork makes the dream work, right? So let's work together. How can we get this collaboration? I've had teachers send me pictures of bulletin boards that they've made for us. Just getting a bulletin board, asking, hey, can I have a bulletin board space on a hallway? I had a teacher tell me that, oh, by the way, you have your own bulletin board. I'm like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. Didn't know I had one, but she prints out all my flyers. I have some teachers that have said, hey, I would love to have copies of all your flyers, but we don't have that in the printing budget. I said, no problem. I print out all my flyers and I mail them to them so they can put that up. I'm not going to let that stop them from sharing my programs. It's a simple thing to do. Summer reading takeovers. Lexington is a very large county, and some of our schools are in very rural areas, so the kids might not necessarily be able to get to the library, but they're close to the schools. So some of our schools have actually opened up in the summer for certain reading nights or literary nights in the summer for kids to be able to come in and check out books during the summer. And of course, they're going to invite the library because we're going to collaborate on our summer reading program together. and I'll talk about that more in a minute, but the service programs too. So most middle and high schools have clubs, and part of their club contract is they have to do X amount of service hours. Well, guess what? We do service Saturday programs. And so these kids, even to get some of the diplomas in high school, they have like extended diplomas, they have to do X amount of service hours per semester. Well, what better way than to provide a service program? We had recently had out the Dutch Fork Robotics Club team, and they came and showed kids how to build robots. They brought in suitcases full of parts and motors, and the kids got to put robots together. We also did a program for getting supplies for foster teens in the system. And so we did a donation collection of clothing and toiletry items. And so we just had boxes and boxes of these items. I provided 2 hours on a Saturday. I'm like, you want 2 hours of service hours? Let's come sort. So the kids sorted the boxes and clothing and things like that. And then the easiest thing I always think of is if school libraries can collaborate with the public libraries for the summer reading program, that puts less pressure on the schools. Most of us use Read Squared. We're able to print out for the teachers at the end of the year these lists of who's participated in the programs, and that way the school media specialists don't have to make up their own summer reading program. And then I always have parents come in, oh, they can't do your program because they're doing the school's program. I said, it's reading, it counts for both, you can do that. But if they already participate in our program, then that's just a huge help as well. Okay, picture time, and then I'll take questions. So let's see, can you guys see this? Yay! This is a teacher puts my flyers up on the lockers outside of her classroom. She asked the students and they don't mind. And so she wanted to show me, like, look, they actually do look at your flyers. This is the bulletin board that I have at Dutch Fork High on the ELA hall because she thought that would be the best place to see it. This was our service Saturday with DSS. So for 2 months, we collected clothing and toiletries and anything that teens would need in the foster care system. They're kind of the most overlooked group in the foster care system. So the teens wanted to help out with the teens. So I just put all these boxes here and I told them, all right, sort them through. And so they were putting them in piles and folding them and reboxing them. So that was great. And they got to earn their service hours for school. And then this is Spring Hill High's gaming club. They are a huge club at Spring Hill High, but they have to come and do a certain amount of service hours. And they have this wonderful video game equipment here and TVs, and I don't have that. So they come and spend about 6 hours in the library playing video games. And I provide them pizza and they share it in their school, and we tend to have about 75 to 100 people attend that day just to come and play video games. And I like to use pictures like this in my presentations at the high schools because, one, look, they're all guys right here. There's girls in here, but these are all guys. And then 2, there's video gaming going on in the library. So that just shows the kids that, look, we have other things, we do other things in the library. This is a great partnership I have with Irmo High School. At the end of the school year, she weeds all her books and we do a big book giveaway at lunches. And so I like to weed all my books at that same time, and the kids will just line up. They actually wait for me out in the parking lot to help me because they know they get first dibs. If you help the crazy library lady bring in the books, and she lets us go through the books first. I'm like, oh, sure, go ahead, carry the boxes, you're young. But this is just a great lunchtime program. We sit through all 4 lunches, and they know we do this every year, and they start lining up. And this very fuzzy one down here at the bottom, sorry, I took it while I was laughing because one of the kids made a joke behind me. This is one of my summer reading school visits. We're in a library, and they set up a projector for me. We do that school has about 900 kids, and we do about 200 at a time in there. it gets loud, but it's fun. We have a lot of fun. This is the Art Fest for the 16 elementary schools for the Lexington 1 area. And so those are the teachers, and we put out art throughout the library and all the kids to come. And down here, this is Pork Chop, and this is Lexington 1 Meets at Main, and this is our main area. We had to clean out all the chairs and tables and study areas to put all these kids there. That's a really fun night. And over here we have, this is the ghost story one. The teachers always like to laugh about how when they first come in, they're slouching in their seats, and they're like, whatever, it's the library lady. And then they start leaning forward and watching me. That's the old Charleston jail behind me there, but that's where Lavinia Fisher spent her last days. But it's just a great time because, they don't realize they're learning South Carolina history and ELA and science stuff because they're just listening to a ghost story, but that's how we sneak it in. This is my teen room in my library, and this is our wonderful artwork that our local schools did. We had a board member provide the big pieces of wood, and we contacted the local art teachers in the area and said, like, would you guys like to do this? So each school is represented in this, and this is, I didn't get all of them, ran out of space, but so the teens got to come in. We had a special art reception that night to show it off, and the art teachers brought other pieces of art to come in and show it off. And again, kids drag their parents to come see art, even in middle and high schools. But it's great because it's a great way to decorate my room as well. Here's my head wig. And this is our parenting center. They came for a visit. And so that's Miss Patty there doing a story time, and they were got to eat pizza and ice cream and got to visit the library. And this is Shu. She works in our circulation department, and she is from China, and we got to go out to one of the elementary schools and talk about the Chinese New Year. So, sometimes outreach just isn't just in the children's department. We recruit. We recruit anybody we can to come help us. And so that was a great program too. That's the end. Well, I just want to say thank you for listening for us for an hour or so. If you have questions, please ask now in the chat. You can also give me a call, or you can also email me. I want to, are you a one-person show, or do you have a staff that assists with preparation for at the high schools? That kind of depends. I usually am the one to go out to the middle and high school, so that's why I rely on PowerPoints and visual. It just gives me more. I can't really do a puppet show for them. But that's typically what I do. Now, when we go out to the elementary schools, there's usually about 2 of us because it's usually a whole bunch more kids all at one time, and we take turns talking. When, sometimes we do a story time with them, sometimes we do a PowerPoint with them, just kind of depending on the age that we're going out for and how many we have going out. Well, that's a state library question there. Who do we need to contact in order to get the Discus swag? Yay! Oh, did I miss more? But it just kind of depends. We have 4 staff members in our youth services department. I know some of the smaller branches might only have 1 or might only have 2. That's why sometimes, depending on what it is, we recruit into other areas of our branch. Again, if you let the schools know what you can do and what you are willing to do, they tend to try to work around you too. Because once you're out there once and they can see one, comfortable you are talking in front of kids, and then two, all the really cool things that we can do and see how the kids get excited about that. You'll start coming back more and more. I try not to just go out at the end of the school year for summer reading. Now, some schools, that's the only time I can come out because they don't have visitors. And then some schools are like, we can have you come out for career day. We can have you come out to tell scary stories in October. What else can we do? What else can we get you to come out here for? Can you explain the Parenting Center programs? When do these take place? So the Parenting Center, we partner with them, and they let us know kind of what they are thinking of doing. The one program that we did was for Thanksgiving, so we did a program about being thankful. And so these are little kids, these are little ones, like 3s and 4s and 5s. And so we talked about being thankful, and they wanted to provide a dinner because they knew food would get the parents out there, so they wouldn't have to worry about trying to feed the kids before they came. And so we did a craft, we did story time, we did songs and things like that. And then after the program ended in there, we kind of walked them around the library as well. Parenting Center's First Steps in Lexington County, yes. So each county will have parenting centers, and usually districts too. So it's a great resource to reach out for as well. Did I miss anybody? Any other questions? Comments? Bueller? No. But thank you guys for letting me come into your lives for an hour during, prior to summer reading, before the crazy. Again, if you have any other questions or need any other information, please call me or email me. I'm going to hand it back over.
Thank you, Alisha. We really appreciate your time and expertise with this and the sharing. And we thank you all for participating today. I will be sending out a follow-up evaluation of the session, and we encourage you to let us know of other programs such as these that you would be interested in hearing about in our webinar series. Thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.